Good afternoon, everybody. All right, I'm going to be talking about logic and versus flawed logic, logic that is flawed. And how do we get to flawed logic? And how does even logic form? Logic forms from our information that we receive or that we read or we get from the internet or from, news, what have you, from the screen. Everything, movies to everything. And that information is data. So if the information or data happens to be mis or disinformation or deception, we still log that in within us. And we take it and we form beliefs. And I want to let you know, beliefs are not necessarily true. And you have to be able to understand this. This is why when you start to look at information or listen to this person or this influencer or this news channel, you have to be able to come to some sort of truth and logic without it being flawed. Because first of all, it's important as you're listening, you can see if it's flawed. Is this logic? Is the logic that person, or the information that person is delivering, is it flawed information? Is it the truth? And are they presenting it with some backup of evidence? Just like a detective, the detective has to find evidence to convict. And we've lost all that. That's gone. That's like, now we're like, putting plants in to cover up who did it. That type of stuff. And things are being covered. This has been happening for decades though. But we're watching it right here in front of our eyes now. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because of a number of things that have happened to me in the past 3.5 years. And I'll start someone will start to befriend me. And they don't know who I am, but I'm kind of a weird bird. Like I'm kind of a little bit like, I'm a freak, all right? And my ex-husband used to say to me, how do you know this? Like, how would you know that? Like, where did you get the information? And because I would be right about something. And then I said, I got it from, X, Y, and Z, but he's really good at logic that is, truthful or that is flawed, but he's not as good as I was. And the thing is that as I was meeting a lot of new people, because now I was single and, I wanted to meet friends because I was with my husband 24/7. So I used this ability, but not as much, with so many people that I was meeting now that I was, single. And I was astonished with how gullible people are with information and how they just believe what they hear. They don't even question it. Like, well, okay, you heard that, but how do you know that they're telling you the truth? And I would ask so many questions. A lot of them would say, you ask so many questions. Like, what, it's very interesting that you do that. I said, well, I want to know why you think that way. Like, how did you get from A to B on that thought? And then now you believe in it so much that you're never going to let it go, because that's become a truth for you. So tell me why do you believe it's true? Did you see evidence? Do you have something inside of you, intuition, some psychic ability that, you went to the field and then you gathered something, or you had a download, or what was it? And I was astonished by so many people, but I also saw something else, that people no longer take responsibility for the information that they take in. Because you got to remember one thing about logic. Logic is something you choose. It's free will. And if you forget that and you're just sucking in all this information off of the influencers who are getting paid, who are sitting at the tables of the people telling them what the agenda is for the next month, what you're going to promote, what you're going to say, what you're going to, and we're just gobbling it all up. Woo, they know because they have 3 million followers and they get to go to the White House. And the thing is that you just assume that they're telling the truth. And that's a logic that is flawed. Right there. And that's your responsibility to not just assume. You have a choice to make. And it's your job to question. It's your job to stop and think when you read that tweet or whatever, that post, and to ask yourself, you know what? How can that make sense? Right? Like, what does that mean? Like, that doesn't make sense because I saw what I saw. So, I think it's important for everybody to finally now become an adult and to really look at that information that you're taking in, because it does form a truth inside of you, that you will come and you'll calculate, okay, because I like that person and I agree with that person, I'm going to take it as a belief. But that belief doesn't make it true. So you have to come to the terms that just maybe I don't believe that because I saw something that makes it me not believe, and plus they're just saying it without any factual evidence. And therefore, I have to question it. You don't have to, be mean to the person, but, you just like, maybe they're, not all the way right. And I'm going to actually, if you're interested, you do your own thorough. You investigate it on your own, and you look and you see where it's flawed. And most importantly, you get good at this and you start talking to as many people as I have talked to in the last 3.5 years around in my area. The logic is so flawed in people, and it will just blow your mind. And I'm not saying like I'm some, like I know everything, or, I feel like I know a lot, but I'm always improving. But the thing is, you start looking and like you'll maybe like be out and about with a group of people, and then immediately this individual will start talking and their logic is flawed. And what you could do as a very, I don't want to use the word intelligent, but your truth, you can ask questions upon that in a very meaningful way and bring light to it if you see the flawed logic. And I do that, and I notice a lot of people end up not liking me. And I'm not mean when I say it, but I'm interested in why people, like, I see flawed logic and immediately a red flag goes up, and then I have a reason to not believe them, and I have a reason to be aware of them. And this has happened many times. I've been to aperitivo. They have this, hour from 4 to 7 or something like that. And you go and you can have Prosecco, and they have, food out and what have you. But I met a lot of people there, and they have a lot of flawed logic. It doesn't make sense when they talk and stuff. And now, not to be mean or anything, but some people have low IQ too. Or maybe it's not low, but they're so used to taking just that information that they get because, like I said, they believe that in what they're hearing. And they just go along with it because sometimes it's easier to go along with it because, they don't want to know. But maybe that's why we're at where we're at with all this the surveillance and what have you. And probably with all the data that these companies are getting, they put it in the supercomputer and it's like a readout. What is humanity's conscious and subconscious and, blah. They put down all kinds. That supercomputer just bam, booms out everything. And they have they're 10 steps ahead of us because they have a climate on all of us globally. Or let's just talk about the United States. So there's 10 steps ahead. So the reason why I'm talking about logic and not have your logic flawed is we need to be 10 steps ahead of them. And this is how I'm looking at it. And this is why it's so important to understand this and to take responsibility for oneself. What if I told you this? Betty Crocker, the cookbooks, that's not even a real person. Did you guys know that? One time I brought it up. I was sitting down at one of these aperitivos, and I was screwing around because I wanted to see if they were smart enough, like, are they alive? That's how I was looking, because some of the things I was just like, whoo. I said, oh yeah, I have this Betty Crocker. And one of the people said, oh, I love Betty Crocker. She is so wonderful. And oh my God. And she used to do a television. She went off, you guys. I was like, wow. And I was listening. I said, wow. And then I said, well, you know that Betty Crocker is made up. It's just a name. It's not, they just named the cookbooks Betty Crocker, like a mother or woman at home, a home baker, because these are old. And she goes, no. I said, no, maybe you're thinking of somebody else. Look it up. And I pulled up my phone and I showed it to her. And everybody was like, let me see. I always thought Betty Crocker was a real person. But it isn't. So that's my point. My point is, stop getting snaked by these mobsters. And we all need to come together because it's crazy, you guys. It's nuts. So discern yourself. Look at all of the data and everything you read and that you listen to. Listen, read, but also question. Don't just suck it in as though it's truth, or that because the person that's delivering it is somebody you admire, which is fine. You can still admire them, but, maybe they're BSing you too. We didn't know that all these influencers are getting paid. Well, I knew, but I didn't have confirmation until it came out from Deutsch or whatever it was, at douche or what, I don't know what it's called. But anyways, you know what I mean? And then I was like, I knew it. Like I had a sense of it. And I knew something was going on because I used to mention it on Twitter. Like, how are you able to be on Twitter all day long? Pushing. And I would think, where do they work? They work at the intelligence, Navy, or wherever it is. And that's their job. And then they say, oh, I do this and that. But then they're always like, when do you have time? So your information and your data, you're going to consolidate, put it into a logical form. That's the next step. And get facts and somewhat, at least a good part of evidence. And then when you have that, then there's no way that, I'm not going to say no way, but there's a 95% that it won't be flawed. But if you're just going off the cuff and willy-nilly stuff and just saying things, then you're going to have a flawed logic. And you have to take responsibility for that, right? So that's it. And I just wanted to say this because I thought it was very important. And to pay attention to other people, what they're saying. Like when you're out and about, listen to people. Because a lot of people like to talk and they don't never listen. And just let them have the airspace and hear what they have to say. And then you can kind of like, you don't have to judge, but you can discern all the information and the data. And then make up your minds for yourself. And look at the facts. Did they present the facts? Did they present the evidence? And then maybe when you get home, you Google or whatever, or go look at information. And then you come up with like, okay, well, that was all right. That was, what they said about that. But I do that all the time. Like, I want to know, like, smarty pants people. And then I get home and I said, good God, they were bullshitters, And I'm like, but they had a really good speak. And a lot of people have really good charisma and they speak well. And they're able to flow out the information like very, very good to a point where, most people would believe them. Why wouldn't you? Look at how, they seem like they're hitting all the points perfectly. So, all right, this is a wrap, and I will see you guys later. Thank you.